Because we want our next guest to have all the time she needs to share her beautiful knowledge. I want to welcome a lady who rocked it the other day at TEDx Maui. She comes from the East Coast, where I'm originally from, and she's Italian, so she got my attention right away. And she's going to talk about Locavesting. And she's been, and you know, it's interesting how Amy got here is 2 years ago, David Fisher, where's David? There's David. David Fisher was instrumental in getting me to have our agricultural design conference happen. And in the agricultural design conference, Jimmy, could you shut that light for a second, please?
Yeah, this will show every site.
Oh, that's Amy. Okay, yeah, don't leave it on. At that agricultural design conference, basically we had 42 people. The county funded it. We were at Haleakua for a week, and we basically got together to map out a plan for Maui. And one of the things that came out of that was developing a local stock exchange. Because the vision was having a community cooperative to where people could actually own it. Own stocks, own shares of that community cooperative. Yeah? So Amy articulated some of this the other day, thanks to David seeking what his vision, what the local stock exchange was. He met Amy, and the rest is history. So now Amy just came and spoke at TEDx. And she's here tonight taking some time out of her valuable vacation time. This is her first time here to Maui, so please, is it your second time to Maui? And Robert's first time to Hawaii? Okay, well please give him a welcome, warm welcome. Thanks, Amy. Amy wants to know if she could raffle her book. Absolutely. Okay, we'll give you guys time to get over there to the raffle table again if you want to get some raffle tickets. All right, Amy, mahalo, sweetheart.
Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I was in Maui about 15 years ago, actually. But when I was asked to come out and do a TEDx, I had to think about it for all of 5 seconds. But really, this is a wonderful place, and I've just been so really touched by the warmth and openness of everybody that I've come across, and what you're all doing here is just fabulous. And I just want to say the food was terrific, and I hope I don't have kale in my teeth or anything. Yeah, so as I was thinking about what I was going to talk about at TEDx, I did a little research, and I was really, I guess, shocked to find out that Hawaii imports about 90% of its food and energy, and even 65% of your fruit. I mean, to me, from coming from the East Coast, that's just, I don't know, stunning. And also that Hawaii has about a 10-day supply of fresh food, which is kind of scary in an age of climate change and just general global unpredictability. And that's why it's so important what you're all doing here. And I think you seem to know what you need to do. You've got workshops. All of the things I heard about tonight. Community kitchens. Lots of small farms coming on board and school gardens. Because the fact is, we need more small farmers. And a new generation of farmers. The problem is, and this is true across the country, and I have some statistics in my book, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but funding is the #1 problem that a lot of new farmers encounter. And I think it's 40% of new farmers are denied funding. Small businesses in general have a hard enough time getting bank loans and financing, but if you're involved with food, forget about it. You're too risky. So that's that's sort of the subject of my book is alternative financing and in particular community financing. Because we eat local, we buy local, but we're not investing local. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Mainly our securities laws, which are kind of absurd, but they were created during the Great Depression, and well, basically it created a two-tiered system. So if you're wealthy, you can invest in anything you like, so private companies, private equity, venture capital. If you're like 98% of Americans, you are pretty much relegated to the publicly traded companies on the stock market. And we all know where that gets us, right? So it's difficult to invest locally today, but people are doing it. And in my book, I write about a lot of different examples and stories from across the country where communities are figuring out how to invest in their local farms, their local businesses, because these businesses give back so much and they're so important, and they're a really important counter to the Monsantos of the world and the corporations that just seem to run roughshod over everything lately. Another about being here and everything that I've just been amazed at. Like, look at all of our produce and just the variety of fruits and everything you have here. And I just want to say how blessed you are with the abundance that you have here. And especially coming from, a Brooklyn girl, which is where I live now. And we actually try and do some growing on our rooftop. And that, if you can imagine, can be kind of difficult. Of course, a much shorter growing season, but we've managed to grow tomatoes, herbs, that they aren't too hard, but corn. Our corn got destroyed by a freak hailstorm last summer. And also gagoots. Vince, do you know what they are? Paisan? Gagoots?
Gagoots?
Yeah, they're like bat-sized squash, like zucchini that hang down. Gagoots, right?
Never heard that name. Gagoots.
Yeah, gagoots. That's the Italian department. I don't know. They might have a formal name. Yeah. So anyway, you are so blessed here, and I can see that there's a lot of energy and passion and wisdom in this room. And I think what maybe I can help with a little bit, and I don't have time to go into too much here tonight, but is the funding part of it. So, how do we help nurture small farms and new farmers and the whole ecosystem that you need around that?
Amy, could you talk a little bit with David and how you folks are, David, where's David? Right here. David, could you get up, please, for folks to kind of share what you've both been working on, so people can...
Yeah, because what David is doing is very, very important, and right now you're trying to build a pipeline for this vision of a Hawaii stock exchange, or marketplace anyway, where local capital could be used to fund local startups and companies. So.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, how many of the folks here were at the Ag Design Conference 2 years ago? Leo was there, I know. And, yeah. So Susan, Teton, and so forth. Anyway, you know that we had this presentation by Michael Schumann about a local stock exchange, and that sort of lit a fire. Pele was being active there for me, right? And so we went out and started doing some research, and the first person we just Googled local stock exchange, and up popped Trex Profit in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which Trexler Profit, which sounds like a Thomas Pynchon character. And but anyway, and he's a lovely man, and got to know him, and so we started sharing documents and what the research and so forth. And Amy probably did the same thing. I'm not sure how you found Trex, we Googled him or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, so Amy was doing research for her book and found Trex. Trex is the one that introduced us and we're all sort of, there are a group of us that are sort of exploring, researching local exchanges, doing one. And so we started talking, corresponding, and I got to read some of the chapters and so forth. And it really opened up, I mean, I've been helping small businesses for 30 years now, and Amy's book does a beautiful job of explaining stuff that I've been seeing and experiencing, but never was able to really articulate, and sort of really put the whole picture together. So I've had a bunch of aha experiences in reading your book, and then when it came out, she actually included some of our stuff and so forth as well. So one of the things that what we learned in the process, first of all, an exchange, we're not going to be using that word because that has too many emotional buttons for people, as well as the securities regulators. When they hear the word exchange, and they freak out. We did, one of the things we did last year is we did get a study group, a resolution through the legislature, and we had a group led by the Commissioner for Financial Institutions and the Securities Commissioner, and it was quite something. They unfortunately didn't hire, or not hire, but bring us into the group right away. So they selected all these people. We had the main lobbyist for the Hawaii Bankers Association, and the people from First Hawaiian Bank, Wealth Management, and Morgan Stanley, and the guy who used to head the Asian Development Bank, and so forth. So all these guys were in there, and we sat through the first meeting. They didn't even call us, or we weren't found out. By default, we were not actually on the study group. And we had to go talk to Roz Baker, who was the sponsor of it, and we were able to send Virendra Nath, my partner in all of this, to start going to the study group. And it took us a couple months before we even got them over the notion, even though it was all written up on our website and everything, but to get them to understand that we're not trying to recreate the New York Stock Exchange in Honolulu, So, but to make a long story short, we finally got them to sort of understand, and just yet today, they're actually Thursday they're submitting the report from the study group, which basically gives us a green light to go forward, not in the public part, but in the private part. So we're going to probably be partnering with, we're talking to several groups, but the group that's most promising is Mission Markets. They have a platform already up. And that's going to be, again, for private stuff, which we want a more public thing to happen. But I think we're going to get there. There's some major changes on the federal level. For those of you who've been following me on Facebook or whatever, you might have seen some of this. There was a legislation passed, the U.S. Congress passed on November 3rd, the Entrepreneur Access to Capital Act, and a couple of other bills that are dramatically going to change everything. It's sitting in the Senate right now, but Obama is definitely a big promoter of this, so in theory it should get through the Senate after everybody's written their own bill version of it, and so forth. But so it's going to change quite dramatically. But I think the important thing to know is that we're going to get an exchange, but not everybody. In fact, most of the people here are probably not going to want to do direct public offerings, right? So we do have to create this whole ecosystem or pipeline, starting off with stuff that's available right now, the crowdfunding. And we've had people, some of the community here has done it, I've done a little bit of that, where you can raise $1,000 or $5,000 in either in donations or pre-selling something. You could pre-sell your crop, let people buy shares, like a community, a CSA kind of a thing. That could all be done online legally today, and is being done right now. But as we go forward with other we want to create this portal or marketplace that will talk about those programs, and also talk about programs like what Randall is offering, grant programs. And also on Maui, we've got Maui Economic Opportunity. I can sit down with someone in an hour or two, put together a little business plan, and you can get $20,000. Give or take some tweaking and having a real plan. But these things are possible and are doable today, and we're gonna start to have more sort of I call them venture forums or enterprise forums, where businesses will present what they're doing, getting sort of the recipes and the nuts and bolts and the spade in the ground and the compost tea for doing a business plan, and we'll be getting those going so we can get funding for these things. But
David, is it realistic to have then a community-owned cooperative? That's, you know,
absolutely, and that can be. I mean, we can talk about. We're going to hear about Whispering Wind, which is a co-op, a worker-owned co-op. So you're going to be hearing about that, although you're probably not going to be talking about that part. Well, maybe you will, but yes, it's definitely doable. The key to all of this stuff is you got to you got to come up with a plan, and you got to make some creative vision and put some numbers to it and figure out how you're not going to all kill each other on the way there and so forth, which is actually the biggest issue. Yeah, yes, it's a different set, but in her book she gives you examples and so forth. So I highly recommend. You'll get really inspired. It's very clear. It's something that you can read it in probably 4 or 5 hours or something like that, and go back to it and so forth. And by the way, I have the ebook. And she has lots of wonderful links, so in the ebook you can click and go to see examples and stuff like that. In your, I have a note color, but you can also, I can just do it right here. So.
Amy, you wanna finish up? What's the title?
Locavesting. So the play on locavore. Locavore is eat a diet. It's sourced locally. It's investing that way. There's one example I like to use that just really explains what we're talking about here. And everybody has probably heard of Kickstarter, right, and some of these crowdfunding sites. Basically, Kickstarter lets people donate money mainly to artistic projects, films, music, things like that. And so it's pure donations. And just as an example of how much people want to support things that they believe in, on Kickstarter, I think they're raising, it's about $2.5 million a week now in donations for these various projects. And that's without any return on investment. And at that rate, they're approaching the annual budget of the National Endowment for the Arts. So it's pretty powerful. Now, if Kickstarter were to let people actually make a profit rather than give their money away, then it becomes a security, and the hurdles go way up, and you get all the securities laws and regulations come in. It's basically illegal. So the legislation that David was talking about, the Entrepreneur Access to Capital Act, if that passes, then suddenly it becomes legal and okay for all of us to put, $100 in and maybe, make, something back on our money. It's no longer a donation. So that could really be huge, and it's something you might want to put on your legislative page, things that you're watching. And it does have bipartisan support, but of course, with this Congress, nothing is certain. So, all the support and, voicing support for that we can have helps. And I have some postcards up here. And as I said, I'd love to raffle a book, and I wish I had one for all of you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.